I confess that I would constantly mock my loving husband for laughs.
I used to think teasing my husband was harmless. I told myself it was just how we were, that all couples joke like that. My friends would laugh whenever I'd mock him, and I have to admit, I liked the attention. It made me feel witty, powerful, even admired. My husband, Daniel, he never laughed along with us. He would usually just offer a polite, tight-lipped smile and stay quiet. I convinced myself that his silence meant he was okay with it, that he was in on the joke. I never actually asked him how it made him feel. Looking back, it's painful to see how consistent it was. At dinner parties, I'd correct him in front of everyone, making it seem like he couldn't get anything right. At gatherings, I'd exaggerate his minor mistakes, turning them into a running gag for everyone's entertainment. When he tried to share his opinion on something important to him, I'd roll my eyes or dismiss his thoughts like they were just an inconvenience. With every little jab, every dismissive gesture, he seemed to shrink a little more. I saw it happening, but I chose to ignore it. The validation from the crowd was more important to me than his feelings. The turning point came one evening at a small get-together at a friend's house. I'd had a couple of drinks and was feeling particularly bold. Daniel offered to help our hosts clean up, and I made a loud, sarcastic joke about him being so obedient. This time, instead of laughter, the room went quiet. An awkward silence filled the air. I laughed anyway, trying to break the tension I had created. That's when Daniel stood up. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't look angry, he just looked tired. Exhausted, he said my name calmly and simply asked me to stop. I just waved him off, telling him he was being too sensitive. That one word, sensitive, it changed everything. The look on his face shifted. It was like he was seeing me, truly seeing me, for the very first time. He said he was done being disrespected. At first, I thought he was bluffing. He had always forgiven me before. He had always come back. But then he picked up his jacket and his keys. I laughed nervously and asked where he was going. He looked me right in the eye and said, "I'm choosing myself." And then he walked out. The sound of the door closing behind him felt deafening. The room stayed completely silent. No one jumped to my defense. No one told me he was overreacting. In that moment, the panic finally hit me. I had pushed him too far. I went home alone that night. The emptiness on his side of the bed was a physical ache. I started sending him a flood of messages, a mix of apologies and excuses, blaming my behavior on stress, on a long week, on anything but myself. He didn't respond. The next day, I woke up to find his things were gone. A note was sitting on the kitchen table. It didn't say much. Just that he needed space and respect, not my excuses. I cried harder than I think I ever have in my life. I tried calling his family, hoping they would mediate, hoping they would tell me he'd be back. Instead, they told me they loved him and that they supported his decision. That hurt more than I ever expected. It was a clear sign that this wasn't just Daniel's problem. It was my problem. The days turned into weeks. The silence was unbearable. I started replaying every single moment I had publicly humiliated him. For the first time, I heard my own voice from his perspective, and it sounded cruel. It sounded like a bully. Out of sheer desperation, I started going to therapy. My therapist didn't sugarcoat anything. She used a term that made me sick to my stomach: emotional abuse. The word hit me like a ton of bricks. I had never hit him. I had never screamed at him constantly. But I had chipped away at his worth, piece by piece, joke by joke, until there was nothing left for him to hold on to. That realization absolutely crushed me. I wasn't the witty, funny wife I thought I was. I was the source of his pain. With this new, horrifying clarity, I wrote him a letter. This time there were no excuses. I took full responsibility for everything. I detailed the specific moments I now understood were hurtful, and I owned my cruelty. I didn't ask him to come back. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I just told him I was sorry and that I was committed to changing for myself, whether he was in my life or not. A few weeks later, he finally replied. He thanked me for owning my actions and said he was healing. He also said that the distance was helping him and he needed it to continue. I respected that. It was the least I could do. I realized my focus had to be on becoming a better person, not on convincing him to return. So I dug in. I stopped looking for validation by putting others down. I learned to sit with my own discomfort instead of trying to control the people around me. I learned that real strength isn't about being the loudest person in the room. Months passed before we saw each other again. It was a brief, calm meeting for coffee. He looked different, lighter, happier. He told me he forgave me, but he also told me he wouldn't be coming back to the marriage. And I understood. Forgiveness doesn't automatically mean you get access to someone's life again. That meeting changed me permanently. I lost a marriage, but I gained a level of self-awareness I never knew I was missing. Today, I no longer find any humor in tearing people down. I listen far more than I speak. I've learned how deeply words can wound, even when they're disguised as jokes. The most unexpected part of this whole journey wasn't that he left me. It was the painful but necessary realization that I needed that ending to finally begin to grow. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever felt like your words are causing pain, it's never too late to listen, learn, and change. Remember to subscribe for more stories about growth and self-discovery.